Hello everyone, welcome back to our TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Foundation series. In this video, we will cover Unit 6, which is Introduction of Architecture Governance. And if you are preparing for TOGAF Foundation exam, this is an important topic, not just from a theory perspective, but from a scenario-based questions. So let's deep dive in. So now, what do we mean by governance? According to ISO IEC 38500, governance is a system that directs and controls the current and future state. So, in simple words, if we define the governance, it is who is making the decisions, who is responsible for those decisions, who is accountable, and how decisions are controlled. These four things combined the governance. So, governance is all about structure, authority, and control to achieve enterprise goals. Now, if we look, okay, this was a governance. What is the architecture governance? So, for architecture governance, if we look from the framework perspective, so we have the framework for governance. So, in that, the governance in the context of architecture refers to the structures and processes that ensures accountability, transparency, and effective decision making. It establishes a clear framework for how decisions are made and implemented within the organization. So, from a governance perspective, there is a framework for governance that drives all the decisions. Now, the second important thing is the responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? So, in the effective governance structure, responsibilities are clearly defined across various roles, ensuring that everyone understands their part in the decision making process. So, everyone is clear what, what is the responsibilities for them. This includes who identify the decisions, who provides input, and who oversees compliance with governance policies. Then the third part is the ensuring the accountability. So accountability is a cornerstone in governance where specific individuals or groups are held responsible for decisions made and the outcome of those decisions. So if certain decisions are being made, first of all, who was responsible for them and who are accountable for them. This ensures that there is a traceable path of responsibility throughout the governance process, enhancing trust and integrity. So it establishes a certain path that who take the decision, why take the decision, and ensures the accountability is there. Now, for this governance, we also have an hierarchy. Like at different levels, what is the hierarchy? So hierarchy involves the corporate governance, technical governance, IT governance, and architecture governance. So let's deep dive a little in each of these. So what is corporate governance? So as the word says, it is more from a corporate perspective. Corporate governance encompasses the processes and structure through which organizations are directed and controlled, focusing on the relationship among stakeholders and the goals of the organization. So this drives the governance for the role of the organization, in which direction the organization wants to go. Then comes the technology governance. Technology governance refers to a framework that ensures that technology resources are used effectively and efficiently in alignment with the organizational goals and objectives. So this more related to the overseeing of the management of IT resources. Corporate governance defined the goals and objective for the organizations. Technology governance defines the how to use the IT resources. Then comes the IT governance. IT governance focuses especially on the processes and structure that ensure the effective and efficient use of IT in enabling an organization to achieve its goal, including the management of IT risks and alignment with business strategies. So, at each level, there is a governance process, there is a governance framework, whether it is a corporate, IT, technology, etc. Now, for this governance, why we are doing it? What are the typical benefits of the governance? So, the benefits are first of all, it creates discipline. Now, what discipline achieves? With the discipline, everyone commits to defined processes and authority structure. Everyone is disciplined. Second comes the transparency. Decisions and actions can be inspected by stakeholders at any point of time because they are quite transparent. Then the third important piece is independence. Processes are structured to reduce conflict of interest. So they are independent of each other. In continuation of the architecture governance, we have the accountability. In accountability, governance board are clearly authorized and answerable for decisions. Who is accountable for them? Then comes the responsibility. All parties must act responsibly towards stakeholders because ultimately we are achieving the objectives of stakeholders. And the final is the fairness. Decision must not create unfair advantages. So if we summarize the benefits, so we have the discipline, we from the governance we have the transparency, we have the independence of the processes, then the accountability, responsibility, and the fairness. Now, who control all these governance processes? So the answer is the architecture board. Now, what is the typical role of the architecture board? Who is the architecture board? So there is a body. This body should be representation of key stakeholders in the architecture and will typically comprise a group of executives responsible for the review and maintenance of the overall architecture. Architecture board typically comprise represented from organization at minimum of two level. So one is the local level. Local level includes the domain experts like and line responsibilities, and the other group is global, which is the organization wide responsibilities. So in nutshell, if we look that architecture board, what it does, it oversees the implementation of the governance strategy, it represents key stakeholders, and it ensures that architecture processes are followed. So how many people should be there in architecture board? What is the ideal size? So the ideal size is 4 to 5 permanent members, and it can go up, but it should not be more than 10 members. So typically the ideal size is 4 to 5 members. Now, what are the responsibilities of this architecture board? From the responsibility perspective, the first responsibility is foundation for decision making. Like architecture board serves as the foundation for decision making related to architectures. It ensures that all decisions are aligned with the organization goals and architecture principles. Then comes the consistency in sub-architectures. So if there are more architecture development work is going on, or within an ADM cycle, we have the sub ADM cycle, it ensures the consistency. So consistency among various sub architecture is crucial for maintaining a cohesive architecture landscape. The architecture board establishes guidelines and framework to ensure that sub-architecture aligns with the overarching architecture strategy. So this is an important task for architecture board. Then the third one is, and it is very important from the time management perspective, how to use the reusable assets. So the architecture board sets target for the reuse of architecture component, promoting efficiency and reducing redundancy within the projects. This strategic approach facilitates better resource management and ensures the overall value of architecture assets. So in each ADM cycle, as an output, there are architecture deliverables, we have the architecture repository, and the governance of that is controlled by the architecture board. Then the next responsibility is the compliance, the enforcement of architecture compliance. It is a key responsibility of the architecture board. This involves ensuring that all projects adhere to established architectural standards and practices, thereby maintaining the integrity of architecture. Like every ADM cycle, every architecture or sub-architecture is following the compliance or not. And then comes the final responsibility, which is the visible escalation capability. So architecture board supports a visible escalation capability for decisions that fall outside the established boundaries. This ensures that issues can be raised and addressed promptly, maintaining the governance structure effectively. So that's the architecture board responsibilities. Now, from the operational perspective, so that is the overall responsibility. Now we will look from the operational perspective and the governance perspective. So what architectural board do from a operation perspective? So number one comes the monitoring and control of architectural contracts. So we have a lot of architectural contracts and we will cover what is architectural contracts in this coming slides. But architectural contract is an agreement between the parties, like a statement of architecture work. That is an architectural contract. So architecture board controls the architectural contract. Then the second one is conducting the regular meetings. Why regular meetings are important? Because regular meetings are crucial for maintaining open line of communications among the stakeholders, allowing for update on progress, issues, and decision regarding architecture management. So they provide a communication channel. Then the third responsibility from the operational perspective is effective management and consistent implementation of architecture. It ensures that the architecture evolve according to the organization's need and adhere to the compliance standard. Then the fourth responsibility is resolving the conflicts. Like escalated issues or conflicts must be addressed promptly to minimize disruption and ensure that the architectural vision remains on track and aligned with organizational goals. And finally, the from an operation perspective, they provide advice and guidance. So providing advice and guidance and information support stakeholders in making informed decisions and promotes adherence to architectural standard and practices. So from an operational perspective, they control the architecture contract, they conduct the regular meetings for communications, they do the effective management and consistent implementation of architectures, resolve conflicts, and provide guidance and advice. So that was from an operational perspective. Now, from the governance perspective, there are few responsibilities. The first responsibility is providing a mechanism for the formal acceptance and approval of architecture through consensus and authorized publications. It provides a fundamental control mechanism for ensuring the effective implementation of architecture. And the third one is establishing and maintaining the link between the implementation of architecture and the strategy and the objectives embedded in the enterprise architecture and the strategic objectives of business. So these are some of the responsibilities from the governance perspective. Now we talked about the architectural contracts. So what are the architectural contracts? So architectural contracts are the joint agreements between the development partners and sponsors regarding deliverables, quality, and fitness for the purpose. So what this architectural contract ensures? They ensures continuous monitoring, risk identification, adherence to the principles and standards, and accountability and discipline. Now, how these architectures are adhered to ADM cycle? So from a ADM perspective, if we see the statement of architecture work in phase A acts as an architecture contract. Architecture domains can be contracted out. EA implementation may be contracted at the end of phase F or the beginning of phase G. So there are a lot of architectural contracts can be created during the different phases. Now we have seen the compliance a lot. So what is the architectural compliance? Architectural compliance is a critical part of architecture governance. It ensures that individual projects comply with the architecture, enterprise architecture. They follow the enterprise architecture. There are usually two complementary processes. The architecture function prepares project architectures, and enterprise and IT governance define formal architecture compliance review. Now, why architectural compliance reviews are needed? So, typically, uh, compliance review help to catch the errors early. They ensure the best practices are applied. They verify the compliances to standards. They identify where the standard need updates. They identify reusable services. They communicate project readiness and highlight architectural gaps. So that's the compliance. Now, if we look at the level of architecture conformance, so there are six levels which are irrelevant, consistent, compliant, conformant, fully conformant, and non-conformant. So, if we deep dive into each of these, so what do we mean by irrelevant? So, we have the architectural specifications and we are doing the implementation. So, if implementation has no feature in common with the architecture specifications, that becomes irrelevant. Now, in the consistent, the implementation has some feature in common with the architecture specification, and those common features are implemented in accordance with the specification. However, some features in the architecture specification are not implemented, and the implementation has other features that are not covered by the specification. So it is like some of the both has been taken considered, and some of the both is not compliant. Then third is the compliant. So all the feature of architecture specification are implemented according to the architecture specification, but some more feature are implemented that are not in the accordance with it. So you can look at this picture and you can understand it better. Now the other side of this is conformant. All the feature in the architecture specification are implemented in accordance with the specification, but some more feature are implemented that are not in accordance with it. Then comes the fully conformant. So there is a full correspondence between architecture specification and implementation. All specified features are implemented in accordance with the specification. and there is no feature implemented that are not covered by the specification. And the final conformance is the non-conformant. So non-conformant is that any of the above in which some features in the architecture specification are implemented not in accordance with the specification. So these are the seven conformance between the architecture specification and implementation. This video covers the unit 6, which was the introduction of the architecture governance. We cover the architecture contracts, compliance, conformance, etc. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more TOGAF exam preparation content. In the upcoming video, we will continue building on this foundation. We have also a 250 plus question series on enterprise architecture foundation certification exams. Please go through that. In the meantime, please like, subscribe. See you there and keep preparing. Thank you.